Chosen one, 7 signs your spiritual awakening is over. It's time to use your powers. You were born with wings. Why prefer to crawl through life? Rumi. If you've been walking the path of awakening, searching for signs, questioning your purpose, and doing the deep inner work, this message is for you. The journey of awakening is not meant to last forever. There comes a time when the seeking must give way to embodying. In today's video on spiritual wisdom, we're uncovering 7 powerful signs that your spiritual awakening is complete and that it's now time to rise into your true power. Are you ready to stop waiting and start becoming? Let us know in the comments. Which sign resonates most with you right now? Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're ready to step into your next chapter. 1. The awakening has ended. Now begins the mission. You didn't awaken just to wander endlessly through the landscape of seeking. The spiritual awakening you experienced wasn't meant to be your final destination. It was merely your initiation. A door cracked open, giving you a glimpse beyond the illusion. And now, the universe is asking you to step fully into the light of your purpose. You've read the books, watched the signs, healed the wounds, and shed the masks. But awakening is not where your journey ends. It's where your mission begins. So many chosen ones become stuck in the comfort of awakening. They cling to the process like it's a destination, constantly searching for more answers, more synchronicities, more messages to confirm what they already know deep within. But the universe doesn't give endless confirmations. It gives you a window, a moment, a nudge, and this is it. You've seen through the illusion. The veil has lifted. The layers of false identity have fallen away. Now, action is required. You are not meant to keep waiting for perfection, because the world doesn't need perfect. It needs present, awake, aware, aligned. You've been entrusted with insight for a reason. Everything you've been through, the loss, the loneliness, the breaking down of your former self, was preparing you for this moment. That knowing inside you, the one that doesn't shout but quietly insists, is your power. The inner voice that speaks of peace, truth, and boldness that is your mission calling you forward. You are not just a seeker anymore. You are a carrier of light, a vessel for truth, a walking embodiment of divine wisdom. And the universe is asking, will you use what you've learned? Or will you keep hoarding wisdom like a collector of trinkets never to be used? Your spiritual alignment is not passive, it's purposeful. You're not here to simply feel enlightened. You're here to create, to awaken others, to speak when it's uncomfortable, to build what doesn't yet exist. There is no more waiting, no more asking for permission. You have already received the signs. You've already been shown who you are. You've already walked through fire and survived the storm. The illusions are no longer convincing. The fear no longer fits. The need for validation has burned away. What remains is your true self, ready, able, and needed. This is the shift. From observation to participation. From awareness to embodiment. From vision to movement. You are the one meant to lead, not because you asked for it, but because your soul was chosen for it. You are no longer lost in awakening. You are aligned in action, and the universe is watching, ready to respond the moment you step forward in full trust. Are you ready to step into your true mission? If your awakening has prepared you for aligned action, comment below. I am ready to serve, to declare your commitment, and inspire others to rise into purpose. 2. The urgency of this moment. You've been feeling restless for a reason. It's not anxiety, not confusion. It's your soul recognizing that you're standing at the threshold of transformation. This feeling isn't a warning. It's a signal, a sacred reminder that your spiritual awakening is no longer just a process. It's now a calling. The time for asking questions, collecting teachings, and staying in preparation mode has passed. You've already gathered the wisdom. Now, it's time to embody it. Everything you've been through, the heartbreaks, the solitude, the inner revelations, the long nights of doubt, followed by quiet mornings of clarity, has led you here. But here's the truth. Spiritual awakening is not a forever phase. It was never meant to be your destination. It was your training ground. Many stay stuck in the cycle of seeking because it feels safe. But the chosen ones know when it's time to move forward, not by force, but through full alignment with who they've become. You didn't come here just to feel enlightened. You came to live as enlightenment in action. That means speaking your truth when it's uncomfortable, trusting your inner knowing over outer noise, and embodying the peace, the strength, and the wisdom that awakening has revealed to you. This is the moment where you step into mastery, not through perfection, but through presence. In the modern world, it's tempting to think we always need more knowledge, more signs, more confirmations. But chasing more is often a subtle form of self-doubt. You don't need another guru, another message, another meditation to prove you're ready. You are ready because you exist. You are ready because your breath still flows. You are ready because life is calling you to serve, to lead, to create, to be now. It's like someone who trains for years but never shows up to the race. At some point, the training becomes a delay tactic. The identity of the seeker becomes a shield that prevents the doer and the healer and the leader from emerging. You're not here to hide anymore. You're here to rise, to stand, to become. The most powerful version of yourself is not waiting somewhere far away. It's the part of you that chooses to act with purpose today. This is the difference between knowing the light and being the light, between understanding love and walking in love, between talking about alignment and living aligned. You've already crossed the hardest part. You've awakened. You've seen the truth. Now the only question left is, will you live it? Your power was never in the knowledge you collected. It's in the embodiment of that knowledge. That's how timelines shift. That's how others are inspired. That's how you fulfill the mission you were sent here to complete. The urgency you feel is divine. It's not pressure, it's presence. The universe isn't rushing you. It's reminding you. This is the moment you've been preparing for your whole life. Don't hesitate. If you feel the pull of something greater, it's because your time is now. No more waiting. No more hiding. Comment below. I am ready to become who I truly am. If you feel the urgency of stepping fully into your power. 3. Awakening was meant to shake and rebuild you. Awakening was never meant to be a permanent state. It was designed to burn away everything that wasn't truly you. Your false identity, your need for external validation, your programmed fears. It came to shake your foundation, not to destroy you, but to rebuild you from the soul up. You were never meant to live in the fire. You were meant to walk through it, rise from it, and carry its light. But many get stuck. They confuse the path of awakening with the destination. They keep reading, listening, meditating, waiting for some ultimate sign that they are finally ready. But that sign is already within you. The constant seeking becomes a trap, a distraction dressed up as spiritual growth. There comes a point when you must stop consuming and start creating. You didn't awaken just to sit in stillness. You awakened to move energy, to shift realities, to live in alignment with the truth you now know. Your soul was never meant to be a passive student of wisdom. It came here to apply it. All the knowledge you've absorbed, the pain you've processed, the illusions you've shed, they were never the end goal. They were preparation. You are not here to only hold light. You are here to embody it. It's time to become the message you've been listening to, the healing you've been chasing, the strength you've been searching for. You are the answer to someone else's prayer. You are the light at the end of someone else's tunnel. But the world cannot receive what you refuse to release. Creation is your next step. Whether it's writing, speaking, leading, or simply showing up in your authenticity, this is how your power activates. This is how you shift from awakening to embodiment. This is how you move from knowing the truth to living it. The fear will still whisper. It will tell you you're not ready. But readiness isn't a feeling. It's a choice. The ego seeks perfection. The soul moves with purpose. You are ready because you've been called. You are ready because you've been through the fire. You are ready because the world needs what you carry. So no more waiting. No more questioning. No more shrinking to fit an old version of yourself. Awakening shook you for a reason. But now the shaking is done. It's time to step forward, to use your power, to become the embodiment of all that you've learned. The season of seeking is over. The season of becoming has begun. If this message stirred something in you, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss powerful insights like this. It's time to stop consuming and start creating your truth. Comment below. I am ready to rise and build my true self. 4. You were chosen for a purpose. You were chosen for a purpose. Not by coincidence, not by accident, but by divine intention. Your awakening wasn't random. It was a spiritual assignment, a call to remember who you truly are beneath the noise of this world. You didn't just wake up to feel enlightened. You woke up to become a force of transformation. The spiritual shift happening across the planet isn't just something you observe, it's something you're meant to help lead. And this leadership doesn't come from ego, power, or control. It comes from alignment, embodiment, and courage. You were called because your soul said yes, long before your mind understood what it meant. You were never meant to wait for angels, guides, or mentors to hand you the answers. They are here, yes, but their role is to nudge you, not carry you. Their whispers can remind you, but they can't act on your behalf. Only you can do that. Only you can stand up and say, I am ready to rise. The chosen ones are not chosen to be passive. They are chosen to step forward when it's inconvenient, to walk in truth when the world prefers illusion, to shine when darkness demands silence. You're not here to wait for signs, you're here to be the sign. There comes a time when learning must give way to doing, when knowing must transform into becoming. This is that time. You've learned the lessons, seen the synchronicities, gone through the fire of growth. Now the question is no longer, what is my purpose, but will I live it? The world is aching for those who are spiritually awake and spiritually active. Not perfect, not all-knowing, but available, willing to use their voice, their energy, their presence as a vessel of light. You don't have to save the world, but you do have to show up for the piece of it that was assigned to you. Living your purpose is not about striving. It's about surrendering to the truth that already lives inside you. When you stop waiting for the right time and start walking in divine time, doors open. Clarity finds you. People are moved by your energy because it's real, not rehearsed. You were chosen because you were built for this. Your pain taught you empathy. Your isolation trained your discernment. Your setbacks gave you resilience. You are not behind. You are right on schedule. No one can activate your mission for you. No one else can speak your truth. This responsibility is sacred. You were not chosen to stay hidden. You were chosen to embody the shift. The awakening was just the beginning. Now, it's time to rise and become what you came here to be. If this message has stirred something deep within you, leave a comment of faith. I accept my divine purpose. I am ready to rise and fulfill my calling. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a message meant for your awakening. 5. The mission after awakening. Real spiritual maturity isn't about how many affirmations you recite or how many hours you meditate. It's about embodiment, where your actions match your knowing, and your presence speaks louder than your words. You've already awakened. You've peeled back the layers, seen through illusions, and walked through darkness with only your inner light to guide you. But now comes the real work. Living it. Living truthfully. Living powerfully. Living like someone who remembers why they came here in the first place. You're not here to stay in a cycle of endless seeking. You're here to become the message, to hold the vibration of what you've learned so deeply that people feel it before you even speak. Your power isn't in how much you know, it's in how fully you show up. It's in how you stay calm when everything around you shakes. It's in the way you respond to pain without losing your compassion. It's in your ability to walk with integrity when no one is watching. That's what it means to live your awakening. There was a woman who, after years of studying every spiritual book she could find, found herself completely broken. Her marriage collapsed, her business failed, and her health declined. All the knowledge she had collected suddenly felt useless. But in that moment of silence, she heard the truth clearly. This is the moment your training was for. She stopped reaching for new answers and started applying what she already knew. She showed up, not perfectly, but powerfully, with clarity, with presence. That shift changed everything, because she finally realized she wasn't meant to just understand the light. She was meant to be it. The world isn't looking for more talkers. It's crying out for those who embody what they believe. Those who don't just repeat truth, but radiate it. Those who can walk into a storm and still be calm. You've been chosen for this. Not to hide your light, but to let it lead. Not to wait for more confirmation, but to trust what's already inside you. Every delay, every wound, every lesson was preparing you not just to survive, but to lead. And now, the mission begins. To know the truth, but not live it, is to betray your own soul. The real initiation wasn't the awakening, it's what you do after. This is your invitation to rise, not someday, but now. To move with purpose, serve with love, speak with clarity, and walk with sacred authority. Your journey didn't end at awakening. It started there. And everything that comes next is what you were born for. If this message speaks to your soul, type, "I'm ready to live the truth," in the comments to affirm your commitment. The mission after awakening is real, and it begins with action. Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so we can keep rising together. 6. the 7 signs that your awakening is complete. Sign 1. You no longer feel separate from the universe. You no longer search for divinity outside of yourself because you've realized it was never out there to begin with. The longing to connect with something greater has transformed into the deep knowing that you are that greatness in human form. This is not an intellectual belief. It's an embodied truth. You feel it in your breath, in the space between thoughts, in the quiet awareness that watches everything but resists nothing. You feel oneness with all that is not as a poetic idea, but as a living presence. The trees, the wind, the laughter of strangers, even the silence between words, all of it feels like part of you now. You've stopped labeling experiences as good or bad because you've seen the divine thread that weaves them all together. Peace is no longer a goal on the horizon. It flows from you, quietly and naturally, like sunlight through an open window. Resistance dissolves. You no longer fight against the unfolding of life because you've tasted the freedom of surrender. The need to prove yourself, fix everything, or force outcomes fades. You let go, not because you've given up, but because you've awakened to the deeper intelligence that governs all things. And this letting go is powerful. It opens space for miracles, synchronicities, and alignment that can't be orchestrated through force. You've become aware that your energy is not passive, it is creative. Every emotion, every intention, every thought is a frequency, and those frequencies shape reality. You notice how your internal shifts instantly reflect in your external world. When you're at peace, life becomes effortless. When you're in fear, chaos arises. This isn't punishment, it's reflection. And now, you respond to life as a conscious artist, not a victim of circumstance. The old self that searched endlessly for answers has dissolved into the quiet power of presence. You don't need constant validation, spiritual highs, or dramatic signs anymore. Your presence is the sign. You are the miracle you once begged for. There is no longer a wall between you and the universe. There is only unity, only flow, only truth. And from this sacred space, your purpose begins not in striving, but in simply being. That is when you know. The awakening is complete. Not because you have all the answers, but because you've stopped asking questions that separate you from what already lives within. Sign 2. Your intuition guides you without doubt. You trust your inner voice fully now. There is no longer a need for endless signs, approval from others, or carefully crafted pros and cons lists. You just know. The clarity doesn't come from logic, it comes from alignment. You don't chase certainty, because certainty has taken root within you. It's not about confidence in outcomes anymore. It's about confidence in the knowing that lives inside your soul. That knowing does not scream. It does not compete. It simply speaks, and you listen. In this stage, fear is no longer your decision maker. Confusion no longer clouds your mind. You've outgrown the habit of seeking outside answers because you finally realized your energy speaks louder than your thoughts. Your body responds before your mind finishes the question. The shift happens quietly, and yet it changes everything. You no longer ask, "Is this the right path?" You feel it. You sense the expansion. You recognize the contraction. And you follow that guidance, not because you're sure of what's next, but because you're sure of yourself. There is a moment in every chosen one's journey when the need for external validation disappears. What replaces it is not arrogance, it's peace. a peace that doesn't beg for permission, a peace that moves through uncertainty like water, flowing where it needs to go. You stop chasing signs. You stop waiting for the perfect conditions. You act because it feels right, not because it looks right. This is the power of deep spiritual alignment. It doesn't ask for proof. It simply moves in truth. When you trust your intuition, you no longer stall in hesitation. There's a calm decisiveness in your presence. People around you may not understand. They might say, "You've changed." And they're right. You've stopped performing for a world that taught you to doubt your own inner wisdom. You've chosen to trust the whisper instead of the noise. You've chosen the internal compass over the external map. You've stopped asking for directions to a place your soul already knows how to find. This is the transition from awakening to embodiment. Intuition becomes your leadership. Faith becomes your foundation. You no longer check 10 times before taking one step. You just move. And in that movement, life rearranges itself to meet your energy. This is not magic. This is spiritual maturity. The ability to move without needing to be convinced. The ability to know without having to explain. The ability to feel aligned and trust it, even when it makes no sense to the outside world. You have graduated from waiting, from questioning, from doubting. Your power now lies in presence, in listening to the quiet pull that says, "This way." That quiet pull is your path. That gentle nudge is your direction. And you follow, not because it's easy, but because it's true. Sign 3. Material desires no longer control you. You no longer chase money, status, or validation because something deep inside you has awakened. You've outgrown the need to impress others with what you wear, what you own, or how much you earn. Your soul no longer feeds on attention. Instead, you find nourishment in alignment. Material things can still bring you joy, but they no longer define you. They no longer pull you into cycles of overworking, proving, or pretending. You've remembered who you are beyond the brands, the titles, the applause. This is the sign of true transformation. When you stop chasing, you start attracting. This is how the law of attraction really works. It responds not to your desperation, but to your vibration. The energy you carry now speaks louder than your words. You've chosen peace over pressure, purpose over possessions. The old version of you needed more just to feel enough. But now, you are enough, with or without more. And from that place of wholeness, abundance flows to you with ease. You've discovered that fulfillment isn't found in what you accumulate, but in how deeply you align. No amount of luxury can compare to the richness of inner peace. No praise can replace the still voice of your spirit saying, "I am home." You've realized that manifestation is not about owning everything, but about owning your truth. Your energy is the currency now. And when you spend it on what's real, gratitude, growth, presence, the universe multiplies your return. You are no longer a servant to material desires. You are the master of your reality. Your spiritual awakening has taught you to see through illusions. You now walk with power, but not the kind that shouts. It's a quiet, magnetic power rooted in detachment and clarity. And because of this, life meets you differently. Opportunities show up, not because you hustle, but because you're in harmony. People feel your calm, your focus, your light, and they're drawn to it. This is freedom. You're not running after things, hoping they'll complete you. You're standing still in your truth, and all that's meant for you begins to arrive. You no longer beg for doors to open. They open when you knock with purpose. You no longer sacrifice your peace to keep up. You slow down, and life speeds up in your favor. The more you surrender, the more you receive. Not from force, but from flow. Not from lack, but from alignment. Not from noise, but from stillness. Sign 4. You have embraced solitude and found peace. Silence no longer unsettles you. It empowers you. What once felt like a void is now a sacred sanctuary where your spirit breathes and your mind rests. You've stopped resisting the stillness, and instead, you've learned to listen to what it reveals. In the quiet, you no longer hear echoes of loneliness or fear. Instead, you hear your truth. Silence has become your teacher, your healer, your refuge. It's where you recharge, reconnect, and remember who you are. You've begun to honor your energy so deeply that anything misaligned simply can't stay. You no longer tolerate conversations that feel empty or relationships that pull you away from your peace. You don't shrink to fit into old spaces, nor do you pretend to be less so. Others feel more. This is spiritual awakening in motion. It's the silent refusal to entertain what drains your soul. It's the unseen power of walking away from noise, not out of bitterness, but out of wisdom. You've outgrown superficiality and stepped into alignment. Now, your vibration speaks before you do. Being alone no longer feels like abandonment. It feels like home. You've stopped seeking constant connection because you've cultivated the most powerful one of all, the connection with yourself. You enjoy your own presence. You understand that solitude is not emptiness. It's sacred space. It's in your stillness that new visions are born. It's in your isolation that your purpose gets louder. You've reached a state where your inner world is so full, you no longer need external noise to feel alive. You have become magnetic not by force, but by presence. Solitude has sharpened your discernment. It has made you precise with your time, intentional with your focus, and protective of your peace. You now recognize that every encounter, every word, every thought carries energy, and you choose what you allow into your sacred space. Your boundaries are no longer walls. They are invitations for only what is pure, true, and aligned. Your aura is no longer porous. It is powerful. You no longer beg to be understood. You simply continue to evolve, trusting that those meant for your frequency will feel your light without explanation. You have stopped chasing and started attracting. You understand the law of attraction not as a tool of control, but as a reflection of energetic alignment. You do not manifest from desperation. You manifest from peace, from clarity, from presence. Your life has become a living prayer, and your solitude has become the altar. In this sacred stillness, manifestation flows like breath. There is no force, only flow. This is spiritual maturity. This is what it means to awaken and rise, not in chaos, but in calm, not in noise, but in knowing. You are no longer searching for peace. You are living as peace. And because of that, your presence now shifts rooms, not by what you say, but by who you've become. Sign 5. You naturally attract people who need your light. People are drawn to you because your energy has become a silent call. You no longer seek validation or attention. Instead, your very presence radiates something real, something pure. It's not about the words you speak, but the frequency you carry. After everything you've been through, the lessons, the healing, the shedding of false layers, you now emit a vibration that speaks louder than any voice. Others can feel it. They may not know why they feel safe around you or why they're suddenly opening up their deepest truths. But something about you feels like home, like truth, like light. That's because you've become a vessel for something greater. And in a world where most are still asleep, that makes you magnetic. As your light expands, you begin to notice a pattern. The people entering your life are no longer random. They're reflections, mirrors, messengers. Some walk alongside you for a while because their soul resonates with your path. Others arrive with chaos in their hearts, seeking peace they haven't earned. And then there are those who don't even understand why they're drawn to you. They just know that your presence soothes something inside them. That's what happens when your spiritual awakening is complete. You stop needing answers, and you start becoming one. You attract not because you try, but because you are. Energy doesn't lie. But the truth is, not everyone who is drawn to your light is worthy of it. Some come to take, to drain, to feed off the peace you've built with blood, sweat, and sacred tears. These are the ones who haven't faced themselves yet. They want your frequency without doing the work to raise their own. And this is why your next step, now that your awakening has matured, is to master spiritual boundaries. You cannot pour into everyone. Your light is powerful, but it's also sacred, and sacred things must be protected. You must learn to say no, to walk away, to shield your peace like a priceless treasure. Because it is. There's a woman who used to give all of herself to everyone, friends, students, even strangers. Her presence felt healing to others, and they would come to her, uninvited but desperate for light. At first, she thought this was her purpose to be the light for others. But over time, she began to feel drained, disconnected, even resentful. That's when she realized, being the light doesn't mean you set yourself on fire to warm others. She learned to protect her energy, to only give from a place of overflow, not obligation. And from that space, her light didn't fade, it grew stronger. You've reached that point now. You're not here to save everyone. You're here to be the frequency that reminds others of their own power. Your energy has become a transmission, a signal for those ready to rise. So guard it, own it, and understand this. Your presence is no longer just a gift, it's an invitation. But only those with the courage to honor it should be allowed through the door. Sign 6. You can see through deception and illusions. You can now sense deception with a kind of spiritual precision that wasn't available to you before. Lies feel heavy in the air. Manipulation stands out like flashing lights. Even the subtle illusions embedded in society's systems, media, politics, expectations no longer have power over your mind. You don't just see things on the surface anymore. You see through them. What used to confuse or control you has lost its grip. And that's because your inner truth has grown louder than the world's noise. You are no longer ruled by fear-based control systems. Fear may still exist around you, but it doesn't live in you anymore. You don't respond to the fear-mongering headlines, the emotional manipulation from others, or the energetic pressure to conform. You've unplugged from the frequency of fear and tuned into the higher vibration of truth. Now, your compass is clarity, not panic. Your guide is intuition, not anxiety. The way you make decisions has changed entirely. You're not influenced by peer pressure, social approval, or programmed reactions. Instead, your choices come from inner alignment. You know when something feels off, even when others call it normal. You pause. You reflect. You listen to that voice inside that says, This isn't right for me. You walk away without guilt. You say no without explanation. You protect your peace like it's sacred because now you understand that it is. Seeing through illusion also means seeing through fear itself. You've realized that most fear is manufactured, an energetic fog meant to distract you from your power. But you've walked through that fog and found clarity on the other side. And with that clarity comes freedom. You no longer live in reaction mode. You live with intention. You no longer seek safety and approval. You find safety in presence, in energy, in knowing who you are and who you were sent here to be. The most powerful shift is this: you no longer believe the world outside of you has more authority than the truth inside of you. That realization changes everything. You're no longer searching. You're embodying. You're no longer waiting. You're moving. What once scared you now fuels you. What once confused you now empowers you. The illusions fell away, and what remained was your power, your vision, your voice. And now, you use that power. You speak when it's uncomfortable. You stand tall when the world wants you to shrink. You live from the soul, not the script. This is what happens when awakening ends. It transforms into embodiment. You don't just talk about light anymore. You become the light. And that light exposes everything false, not to shame others, but to awaken them too. Because when one chosen one sees through illusion, the energy ripples. When one soul stops fearing fear, it shifts the atmosphere. When you choose truth over comfort, you show others what's possible. You didn't come here to be passive. You came here to break patterns, to radiate higher frequencies, to manifest a reality rooted in love, sovereignty, and spiritual wisdom. You came here to see through the dark and still choose the light. And now, you are doing exactly that. Sign 7. You feel a strong call to step into your mission. You no longer think about your purpose. You feel it vibrating through every part of your being. It's not a mental exercise or a philosophical question anymore. It's a living truth that wakes with you in the morning and follows you into the night. You feel called not by logic, but by something sacred and beyond words. This pull isn't casual or convenient. It's urgent, divine, and unmistakable. You're no longer seeking signs because the feeling itself is the sign. It lives in your gut, in your chest, in your bones. The days of observation are over. Watching, waiting, analyzing it doesn't satisfy your soul anymore. A restlessness has grown inside you, not from lack, but from fullness. You've learned, you've healed, you've awakened, and now that wisdom wants to become action. You can't stay still. You weren't built to stay still. There's a fire rising inside of you that won't be tamed by passivity. You're ready to step forward, not because you know every detail of the path, but because the silence of inaction has become louder than the fear of failure. Even without certainty, you feel ready. You may not have all the steps laid out. You may not have perfect clarity or external validation. But something in you knows. This is the moment. You've stopped asking for permission and started walking with intention. You're no longer looking for external proof. You've become your own confirmation. The knowing within you is stronger than the questions around you. And even in uncertainty, you are grounded in trust. That trust is your foundation. That inner fire is your compass. Every day, the mission calls to you louder, and you no longer ignore it. You understand now that being chosen doesn't mean being perfect, it means being willing. Willing to show up, willing to risk, willing to be seen. You're no longer just a student of awakening. You are the embodiment of its completion. You've shifted from absorbing light to radiating it. You've stopped consuming truth and started living it. This is your moment of transition, your turning point from the seeker to the one who serves. What once felt like a distant calling now feels like a command from the soul. You don't need all the answers. You need only to take the next faithful step. You were never meant to awaken just to stay awake. You were meant to awaken so you could rise, lead, heal, and create. The time is no longer someday. The time is now. As we uncover these 7 signs, take a moment to honor how far you've come on your spiritual path. Your presence here shows you're not just awakening, you're evolving. Comment below, "My awakening is complete, and I am ready to live in truth." Let this be your affirmation as you step into your highest self. Your awakening was never the end. It was the beginning of your true purpose. Now, it's time to embody everything you've learned and use your gifts with confidence. The world needs your light more than ever. If this message resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself like this video. Share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom for more powerful insights. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss a moment of your soul's journey. Your time is now. Step forward. Shine boldly. Carl Jung's warning about empaths. It's darker than you think. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. At Spiritual Wisdom, we believe that awakening begins with awareness. And for empaths, that awareness often feels like both a gift and a burden. In this video, we'll explore Carl Jung's deeper and more unsettling warning about the empathic path truths that are rarely spoken but urgently needed. These insights aren't just theory. They're a mirror to help you navigate your emotions, protect your energy, and grow into your highest self. As you watch, ask yourself, how has your empathy shaped your relationships and your identity? Share your reflections in the comments, and let's awaken together. 1. Empathy is an archetypal, not just emotional, gift. True empaths are not just emotionally sensitive individuals. They are psychic conduits through which unseen forces pass. While modern culture paints empathy as a gentle gift, Carl Jung's deeper insight reveals something far more complex. The empath does not simply feel with others. Instead, they absorb emotional energy like a sponge, often unknowingly channeling the unresolved pain of others, the tension of the collective, and even the echoes of ancestral trauma. This isn't sentimentality. This is soul work. Empathy, in its truest form, is archetypal. It belongs not to the ego, but to the realm of the unconscious. Jung understood that empaths are intimately connected to powerful, universal patterns that stretch far beyond personal experience. They are tapped into the undercurrent of humanity's unspoken sorrow. And this is why their burden is so heavy. They may feel grief without cause, carry anxiety that doesn't originate from their own life, or wake with dread that belongs to the emotional atmosphere of society itself. This capacity to feel deeply and widely isn't always a blessing. Empaths often suffer because they don't know where their emotions end and another's begin. They walk through the world absorbing the invisible, a fight between light and shadow that most people don't even realize is happening. This is not a gift for the faint of heart, and it is rarely acknowledged for the spiritual weight it carries. Without awareness, the empath may drown in what they carry. But with spiritual wisdom, they learn to navigate the tides. What's most dangerous is that the world doesn't often recognize the true empath. Instead of seeing a sacred mirror, society labels them as too emotional, too sensitive, or too dramatic. In truth, the empath is reflecting what others can't bear to see in themselves. Their energy exposes repression. Their presence stirs buried pain. And that's why many people unconsciously reject them, not because of who they are, but because of what they awaken. Spiritual wisdom teaches that energy must be discerned, not just felt. And this is the empath's task, to learn what is theirs to carry and what is not. This requires deep boundaries, not walls, but intelligent filters that allow clarity to pass and distortion to be blocked. Without this skill, the empath becomes a dumping ground for the collective shadow. But when mastered, their sensitivity becomes a superpower, not for attention, not for approval, but for alchemy. The empath is not here to be comfortable. They are here to transform pain into presence, emotion into awareness, darkness into light. That's the deeper role Jung pointed to, not the romanticized empath, but the archetypal vessel. And if one does not understand this role, they risk being consumed by it. But when understood through the lens of spiritual wisdom, empathy becomes something else entirely. Not a burden, but a sacred path. Have you ever felt emotions that didn't seem to belong to you, like you were carrying the weight of something ancient or collective? If so, share your experience in the comments below so others can feel seen too. And if you're just starting to explore your empathic gift, type, "I'm open to understanding," so we can walk this path of spiritual discovery together. 2. Unconscious empathy leads to possession and self-loss. When empaths operate unconsciously, they don't just feel others' emotions, they become entangled in them. Without clear boundaries, they absorb emotional pain like a sponge, often mistaking it for their own. They carry the weight of unresolved trauma, shadows, and psychic debris that do not belong to them. This isn't simply compassion, it's energetic possession. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." For the unaware empath, this fate takes the form of emotional confusion, chronic fatigue, and the gradual erasure of self. Their identity begins to blur. Their center becomes unstable, and they live in a state of constant emotional flooding, like a mirror that reflects every wound but forgets its own face. This merging of energies is dangerous because it pulls the empath into other people's inner chaos, leaving them haunted by emotions that aren't theirs. These inner disturbances often surface in dreams, mirrors that twist their reflection, caves that trap them in darkness, and ghost-like figures symbolizing energies that need release. These are not just poetic images. They are the language of the unconscious trying to speak. They reveal a life lived for others, a self that has been eclipsed. The empath becomes a silent witness to pain, yet internally cries out for boundaries that were never taught. And so the spiritual burden deepens. True spiritual awakening begins not with more feeling, but with more awareness. It is not about absorbing more, but about learning what to let go. The empath must awaken to the fact that their ability to feel is not a curse, but neither is it a blank check to carry everyone's suffering. They must stop confusing love with self-sacrifice and instead embody discernment, the wisdom to know what is theirs to hold and what is theirs to release. This awakening demands inner work, grounding, energetic boundaries, and the courage to confront patterns of over-responsibility. It is only when the empath reclaims their energy that healing begins. Spiritual awakening is the process of returning to the self, not the role, not the mask, not the emotional caretaker, but the soul behind it all. The empath must learn to stand still in their own truth, without flinching, without shrinking, without merging. As Rumi said, "Don't get lost in your pain. Know that one day your pain will become your cure." For the awakened empath, that cure comes when they finally stop rescuing others at the cost of abandoning themselves. They don't stop loving, but they stop leaking. They don't stop caring, but they stop collapsing. They become clear vessels of light rather than foggy mirrors of everyone else's sorrow. And in that clarity, they don't just survive, they rise. If this message resonated with you, don't hesitate to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. 3. Childhood trauma and ancestral pain shape the empath's identity. Many empaths don't become sensitive because they were born that way. They become empaths because they had to. In chaotic or emotionally unstable homes, they learned early on that tuning into others was a matter of safety, not choice. This wasn't a gift at first, it was survival. A child who has to monitor their parents' every mood to avoid punishment or rejection will grow up to become an adult who scans every room for danger, even if it's emotional. What looks like intuition is often the refined skill of reading people developed under pressure, under fear, under silence. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." For empaths, this couldn't be more true. Many are driven by unconscious wounds from the past, shaped by experiences they couldn't control. Worse still, it's not just personal trauma they carry, it's ancestral. The grief and unresolved pain of previous generations get passed down quietly through behaviors, emotional suppression, and spiritual disconnection. Empaths are often the ones in the family system who feel it all, who absorb what others deny. But without healing, that gift becomes a weight. They feel everything, but understand very little of where it comes from. And the result is exhaustion, confusion, and self-neglect. Take the example of a woman named Sarah. As a child, she lived in a home where her father was kind one moment and emotionally cold the next. To survive, she learned to become hyper-aware. She could sense when to speak, when to disappear, and when to comfort others at the expense of herself. That gift earned her praise later in life. People loved her empathy, her warmth, her ability to get them. But what they didn't see was the cost. Behind that emotional radar was a little girl who had never learned how to turn it off. Like many empaths, Sarah was living in reaction to her past, not in connection with her present. Carl Jung called this pattern the archetype of the wounded healer, those who seek to mend others while avoiding their own pain. Many empaths unconsciously fall into this pattern. They don't just help others out of compassion, they do it out of compulsion, believing that by fixing the outside world, they'll feel better inside. But this is a trap, because empathy without boundaries is not love, it's self-abandonment. And when empathy becomes a reflex, not a choice, it drains you. You give and give until there's nothing left, and then you wonder why you feel invisible. The truth is, healing begins when you stop making your empathy a job and start making it a choice. You don't owe the world your exhaustion. You owe yourself restoration. You don't need to carry the pain of every person you meet to prove your worth. Your sensitivity is sacred. but it was never meant to be used as a shield or a burden. It was meant to guide you, not enslave you. Carl Jung's spiritual wisdom teaches us that the shadow we don't face becomes the life we unconsciously live. If your empathy was shaped in trauma, then reclaim it through awareness. Turn it from a reaction into a sacred practice. Learn to feel without losing yourself. This isn't about feeling less. It's about feeling wisely. Do you feel this truth in your bones? If you do, declare it boldly in the comments. I am healing generations through my empathy. 4. The shadow side of empathy must be confronted. Empathy can be a quiet disguise for the ego. Beneath the surface of care, there often lies a deep, unspoken need to be seen as important, to be irreplaceable, to be the one others cannot do without. This craving to help can become less about love and more about control. And what appears as compassion can be a silent strategy to escape our own wounds. Carl Jung understood this paradox deeply, that even our most admired traits have a shadow side. When we give endlessly, we may tell ourselves it's because we care, but sometimes we give because we're afraid to look within. Overhelping becomes a pattern. It looks like love, but it's laced with fear. It's the fear of not mattering unless we're needed. It's the avoidance of our own inner pain by fixing everyone else's. And when this happens, empathy no longer serves healing. It serves ego survival. We become emotionally entangled, mistaking sacrifice for virtue and self-erasure for devotion. In truth, we are often trying to soothe ourselves by saving someone else. This kind of empathy is exhausting. It drains the soul because it's not rooted in wholeness, but in fragmentation. We overextend. We absorb pain that's not ours to carry. We merge so deeply with others' suffering that we forget who we are. And the deeper tragedy is that in trying to be everything for everyone, we slowly disappear. What we call compassion becomes a mask we wear to avoid facing our own unmet needs. Carl Jung's spiritual wisdom urges us to step back, not to stop caring, but to care consciously. The true empath does not rescue to avoid loneliness. They do not absorb to feel worthy. They do not give endlessly just to be loved. Instead, they learn to hold space without losing themselves. They recognize when their helping is actually hiding. They set energetic boundaries not out of coldness, but out of clarity. Empathy without boundaries becomes codependency. Compassion without awareness becomes emotional manipulation. This is the dark side that must be acknowledged. It is only when we confront these truths that our empathy transforms into power, not the power to fix others, but the power to remain rooted in our own center while still offering love. Jung teaches that everything we do, even the good, must be examined through the lens of self-awareness. Because healing isn't about giving all of ourselves away, it's about becoming whole within, so that what we offer is clean, free, and conscious. The real spiritual wisdom is this: empathy is not just about feeling what others feel. It's about knowing when the feeling isn't yours to hold. If you're ready to confront the shadow side of your empathy and reclaim your true self, comment below. I choose truth over illusion. Let's walk this path of self-awareness together. 5. The true empathy requires boundaries and inner strength. True empathy is not about becoming a sponge for other people's emotions. It's not about soaking in pain until you can't tell where their suffering ends and yours begins. That is emotional fusion, not compassion. Real empathy is witnessing without merging. It's the art of holding space for another soul while remaining anchored in your own. It's saying, I feel you, but I am not you. And that one sentence marks the beginning of a spiritual awakening. Because to awaken is not simply to feel more, it is to see more clearly, to recognize where your energy ends and someone else's begins. Without that clarity, empaths are not gifted. They are exhausted, drained, dissolved into the chaos of the world around them. Carl Jung once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." That includes the part of you that wants to help, heal, and hold everyone, but also the part that must say no. Boundaries are not selfish. They are sacred. They are spiritual muscles, forged through discernment and self-trust. A sponge absorbs everything indiscriminately, but a sovereign vessel chooses what it allows in. An empath who is awakened is no longer a victim of energy. They are a guardian of it. Sensitivity is not a weakness. It is a raw perception. But when untrained, it becomes suffering. You can't save others by losing yourself. Empathy, without grounding, becomes self-erasure. But empathy with inner strength becomes a force of healing. You don't need to become harder. You need to become clearer. Clear about your limits. Clear about your role. Clear that your purpose is not to carry everyone, but to hold truth when others have forgotten it. This is the path from sponge to sovereign. The journey from drowning in emotion to becoming a vessel of divine clarity. It is spiritual wisdom in action, the awakening of selfhood, not the denial of it. The more you know yourself, the less likely you are to confuse someone else's chaos for your responsibility. The world doesn't need more people who feel everything. It needs more people who feel deeply and still remain rooted. That is true empathy. That is spiritual awakening. Don't forget to subscribe for more spiritual wisdom on transforming empathy from emotional overload into grounded strength and sacred boundaries. 6. Conscious empathy is alchemical and transformative. When an empath awakens, something profound happens. They stop being overwhelmed by the emotions of others and begin transmuting that pain into wisdom. No longer a passive vessel for suffering, the conscious empath becomes a living mirror, not of wounds, but of possibility. They begin to reflect strength, insight, and clarity instead of absorbing confusion and emotional weight. This is the alchemical power of conscious empathy, the kind Carl Jung hinted at when he said, "Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people." Instead of rescuing others and losing themselves in the process, awakened empaths learn to hold space. They guide through presence, not control. They love without attachment, without draining their spirit. Their empathy no longer burns them out. It lights the way for others. Jung understood that the unconscious drives most human behavior. And so, when a conscious empath reflects someone's truth back to them, they disrupt the patterns that keep that person asleep. Their presence alone can awaken hidden potential because they've done the work to awaken their own. This kind of empathy requires deep inner strength. It is not soft and fragile. It is sharp, clear, and rooted. It's the kind of empathy that sees through projection, through manipulation, through performance. A conscious empath can feel everything and still remain centered. They've learned that not every emotion they sense belongs to them, and not every soul in pain is theirs to heal. Take Jenna, for example. A nurse and a natural empath, she spent years absorbing the pain of her patients. Every night she came home drained, thinking that this exhaustion was simply part of being a good person. But after stumbling upon Carl Jung's writings and beginning to explore the unconscious roots of her behavior, she realized that her empathy had become martyrdom. She began to build boundaries not as walls to shut others out, but as sacred containers to preserve her energy. She stopped identifying with pain and started channeling it into presence. Today, she still feels deeply, but she no longer drowns. She reflects strength because she has claimed her own. Empathy without consciousness is chaos. But empathy fused with self-awareness becomes spiritual clarity. It transforms reactive emotion into intentional connection. It stops being about taking on the burdens of others and starts being about illuminating the truth within them. This is what Carl Jung meant when he said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." True empathy is not sacrifice, it's transmutation. And when you learn to feel everything without losing yourself, when you choose presence over performance, you don't just heal, you become the healer. You don't carry the weight of the world, you carry the light that helps others see their own. If this message resonated with your soul, leave a comment of intention. I choose conscious empathy. I transmute pain into light. And don't forget to subscribe for more spiritual wisdom on walking the path with clarity, strength, and love. 7. The journey requires individuation and daily self-awareness. The empath's path is not merely about feeling deeply. It's about becoming radically self-aware. Carl Jung didn't romanticize empathy. He saw it as a profound psychic function that, if left unchecked, could lead to distortion, projection, and exhaustion. The true journey of the empath is individuation, the lifelong work of becoming whole through conscious self-reflection, shadow integration, and inner alignment. To walk this path is to commit to a daily discipline of asking, "Is this mine?" A question that seems simple, but holds immense spiritual weight. Because without asking it, the empath risks carrying burdens that never belonged to them in the first place. This question creates a pause, a sacred moment where the empath chooses sovereignty over absorption. In that moment, spiritual wisdom begins to take root. Empathy becomes conscious rather than compulsive. You no longer feel everything as yours, but rather you learn to feel with clarity and boundaries. And that is not coldness. That is a sacred responsibility. Jung warned that when we avoid the work of individuation, we inevitably project our unhealed parts onto others. Empaths, by their very nature, become mirrors for that projection, absorbing unresolved pain, guilt, or shame that others unconsciously disown. The result? Emotional overload, spiritual fatigue, and a slow erosion of the self. That's why individuation is not optional. It is essential. It's not about detaching from the world, but about anchoring more deeply into your truth. Emotional honesty becomes your compass, not just in relationships, but within your own inner world. You stop abandoning yourself for the comfort of others. You stop mistaking spiritual martyrdom for compassion. You begin to see that being an empath is not about being everything for everyone. It's about becoming whole for yourself. And the more whole you become, the more grounded your empathy becomes. It transforms from reaction to presence, from chaos to clarity. Your intuition sharpens. Your energy stabilizes. You become a calm center in a world full of noise. That's the gift of spiritual wisdom. It doesn't numb your sensitivity. It hones it. It teaches you that your light isn't meant to be a lifeline for everyone drowning. It's meant to be a beacon, showing others what self-possession and integrity look like. The empath, who walks the path of individuation, no longer asks, "How do I help everyone?" but rather, "How do I stay true to myself in every interaction?" That shift changes everything. It is not selfishness, it is sacred alignment. Because when you honor your own energy, you stop leaking it into people, places, and problems that are not yours to heal. You begin to trust that your presence, your truth, your clarity, without overextension, is enough. And that is when you move from surviving empathy to embodying it with grace, power, and peace. If this message resonates with your soul, leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss powerful insights like this. Comment below. I commit to my daily journey of self-awareness and soul alignment. And so, remember, being an empath is not just about feeling deeply. It's about carrying unseen burdens, navigating invisible forces, and walking a path that few understand. Carl Jung's warning reminds us that the gift of sensitivity is also a responsibility, a spiritual calling to face what others deny. If this message spoke to your soul, don't keep it to yourself. Like this video, share it with those who need to hear it, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. Turn on notifications so you never miss another insight that could transform your inner world. Your journey is sacred. Let's walk it together. Why the universe sends you someone you can't be with. Some people come into our lives as blessings. Some come as lessons. Mother Teresa. Have you ever met someone who felt like home, only to realize you could never stay? In today's video, Why the Universe Sends You, Someone You Can't Be with Carl Jung. Spiritual Wisdom will explore the deeper meaning behind these sacred, soul-shaking connections. This isn't just about heartbreak, it's about spiritual growth, karmic purpose, and the mysterious timing of the universe. As you listen, ask yourself, what was my soul meant to learn through the one who couldn't stay? Comment below with your thoughts or share your own story. Your wisdom might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. 1. Fated encounters that don't last. Sometimes, the universe brings someone into your life who feels like a missing piece of your soul, only to take them away. It's not punishment, nor a mistake. It's a divine orchestration rooted in timing, circumstance, and a deeper spiritual design. What you feel is not just heartbreak. It's a sacred rupture, a haunting ache that doesn't simply break your heart, it tears at your sense of self, your timeline, your very idea of what love is supposed to be. Because this isn't ordinary pain. This is the kind of loss that feels ancestral. Like your soul has known this person long before your body ever did. You don't just grieve their absence. Why most people never survive their spiritual awakening. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Carl Jung. Welcome to Spiritual Wisdom. In today's video, Why Most People Never Survive Their Spiritual Awakening, we're diving deep into the raw truth behind why awakening feels more like a breakdown than a breakthrough. It's not just about light and love. It's about confronting illusions, shedding identities, and walking through the fire of your own transformation. As you listen, reflect on your own journey. Have you ever felt like your world was falling apart, only to realize it was falling into place? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your experience could inspire someone else who's still in the dark. Let's grow through this together. 1. The process is painful, lonely, and confusing. You're not just confused, you're unraveling. In a spiritual awakening, you don't step into light. You fall into darkness. The world you once knew begins to dissolve. Everything familiar with your beliefs, habits, identity collapses like a house built on sand. This is what mystics call the dark night of the soul, and Carl Jung called it the confrontation with the shadow, the buried self, the rejected memories, the pain you thought you'd escape. You enter the void. The past is gone. The future hasn't arrived. All that remains is the raw truth of the present moment, and it is terrifying. Your ego screams for safety. It clings to what it knows. It tells you you're going crazy. But the breakdown you're experiencing is sacred. It's not the end. It's the fire before rebirth. You feel like you're losing yourself, but in reality, you're shedding everything you're not. Carl Jung once said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." He knew this path was not for the faint-hearted. Spiritual awakening doesn't come with angel choirs and eternal peace. It comes with grief, silence, and the unbearable weight of seeing your illusions fall apart. A woman once told me about the moment it all began for her. She had everything: success, admiration, the life she dreamed of. But suddenly, she couldn't get out of bed. Her chest ached. Her smile felt fake. Her soul was calling her into stillness, and her body followed. She left her job, ended a long-term relationship, and for months, she felt like she was dying. But in that quiet suffering, she heard her real voice for the first time. Not the voice of who the world wanted her to be, but the voice of who she truly was. That's when the healing began. She didn't return to her old life. She created a new one from a place of truth. This is why most people don't survive their spiritual awakening. Not because it kills them, but because it requires a death. The death of the mask, the death of the false self. And most aren't ready to let go. So they return to the familiar. They numb the discomfort. They silence their soul. They choose the dream over the truth. But you can't unsee what awakening shows you. You can try to ignore it, but something in you knows that the life you had wasn't real. You will never heal until you face this about your mother. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. So many of us carry wounds we cannot name, shaped not just by what our mothers did or didn't do, but by the emotional imprint they left deep within us. In today's video from Spiritual Wisdom, we explore the shadow mother, the silent force that shapes our patterns, our relationships, and even our sense of self-worth. Healing begins not by blaming, but by bravely facing what still lives inside us. What have you inherited emotionally that you're ready to release? Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your truth. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're ready to walk this path of deep healing and transformation. 1. The shadow of the mother lives within you. Even if your mother is no longer physically present in your life, whether she lives far away, has passed on, or you haven't spoken in years, her energy still lives inside you. Not just as a memory, but as a deep emotional imprint, woven into the very architecture of your psyche. This invisible presence is what Carl Jung called the mother complex, a powerful, often unconscious force that continues to shape your emotions, self-worth, and the way you relate to the world. You may think you're free from her influence, but if you've ever heard her voice echo in your own self-talk, or found yourself repeating patterns in relationships that leave you feeling unworthy, unseen, or overly responsible for others' emotions, you're still moving through the shadow she left behind. Jung emphasized that this complex is not about the outer mother, but about the inner psychic image we carry, the emotional blueprint formed in childhood, made up of her gestures, her tone, her presence or absence, her pain, and her silence. This internalized mother becomes a filter, one you didn't choose, but learned to survive through. If she was critical, you might now judge yourself harshly. If she was emotionally unavailable, you might constantly seek love from those who can't offer it. If she was overwhelmed, you might feel guilty for having needs. These patterns don't dissolve on their own. They repeat until they're made conscious. The shadow mother, composed of generational trauma, unspoken sorrow, or her own unmet dreams, often hides behind your strongest reactions, your deepest insecurities, or your compulsion to fix or please. Healing doesn't happen by avoiding this inner figure. It begins the moment you stop running from her and start listening to the pain, the patterns, and the silent contracts you unconsciously made to carry her emotional burdens. Jung wrote, "Nothing has a stronger influence psychologically on their environment, and especially on their children, than the unlived life of the parent." When your mother didn't live out her truth, whether because of culture, trauma, or limitation, you inherited more than her features. You inherited her unfinished story, but that story can end with you. When you recognize the mother complex operating inside you, you reclaim your emotional autonomy. You stop reacting from the child within and start responding as the conscious adult. You no longer seek validation from those who cannot give it, and instead begin offering yourself the nurture, protection, and acceptance you've always deserved. You no longer carry guilt for her pain or shame for her silence. You stop mothering the world and start remothering yourself. This is the path of inner liberation. It's quiet, deep, and often painful, but it's real. Facing the mother complex isn't about blaming her. It's about understanding the hidden forces that shaped you so you can break the cycle. It's about stepping into your own identity, no longer defined by someone else's wounds. And when you do, you become whole, not in spite of your past, but because you dared to face it. If you're ready to face the inner mother and reclaim your emotional freedom, comment below, "I am ready to heal from within." 2. The archetypal mother in Jungian psychology. In Jungian psychology, the mother is not just the woman who gave you life. She is an archetype, a universal psychic imprint shared by every human being. This archetype is powerful because it lives beyond memory, beyond biography, embedded in the very structure of the unconscious. Jung called her the Great Mother, and she comes with a paradox. She is both the giver of life and the one who can unconsciously limit it. She nurtures, protects, and soothes, but she also devours, controls, and restrains. Most people only see one side of her, the comforting embrace. But the other hand, the shadow of the mother, is what holds many adults emotionally captive for life. When you fail to separate your real, historical mother from the internalized archetype, distortion sets in. You start to project your unhealed emotional blueprint onto people around you. A partner becomes a rescuer. A friend becomes a judge. A boss becomes a tyrant. And you live out the same emotional wounds repeatedly because your psyche is still orbiting around that original, inner maternal image. The danger lies in this confusion. You may think you're reacting to the world in the present, but you're actually responding to echoes of the past that were never seen, felt, or integrated. For many, the real breakthrough comes when they realize that the wound is no longer about the outer mother. It's about the inner one, the emotional blueprint left behind, the unmet needs, the silent expectations, the shame and sorrow passed down without words. As Jung said, nothing has a stronger influence psychologically on their environment, and especially on their children, than the unlived life of the parent. This unlived life becomes a psychic inheritance, one you didn't choose, but must learn to transform. Consider someone who constantly seeks validation. On the surface, it may look like low self-esteem, but underneath, there's often a deeper emotional programming. The inner mother's voice, whispering that love must be earned, that being too emotional is dangerous, that asking for support is weak. These aren't just beliefs. They are survival codes formed in the presence of the original mother, then cemented by the archetypal one. To heal, you must step into sacred inner territory. You must turn toward the mother within the psychic energy that still governs your emotions and see her clearly. Not to blame her, not to reject her, but to finally differentiate. To say, this was your story, but it is no longer mine. This was your pain, but it does not belong to me anymore. And in doing so, you untangle yourself from a web of unconscious loyalty, from patterns that were never truly yours. This is the spiritual initiation Jung pointed to. Not an outer transformation, but an inner separation, a reclamation of the self from the grip of archetype. And only by facing this truth, this shadow of the mother, can you return to wholeness. Not by rewriting your past, but by rewriting your relationship to it. Not by creating a new identity, but by freeing the original one that was buried beneath someone else's pain. Are you ready to explore the deeper layers of your psyche and uncover the truth behind the archetypal mother? If so, comment below. I embrace the inner journey to affirm your commitment to healing and self-awareness. 3. The shadow mother and psychological imprisonment. The shadow mother is not your physical mother, but the psychological imprint she left behind, a presence that lives inside you, shaping your emotions, choices, and relationships. This shadow carries the unmet needs, silent expectations, and unresolved pain of the mother you knew or imagined. She is the consuming aspect of the archetypal mother, as Carl Jung described the one who smothers rather than nurtures, controls rather than empowers. Her voice is subtle but powerful. It shows up in your guilt when you say no, in your fear of being too much or too different, and in the quiet self-betrayal that repeats itself in your adult life. Even if she is no longer around, physically distant, or even deceased, her energetic grip remains. You hear her not in words, but in hesitation, in shame, in that internal pull that tells you it's safer to stay small than risk being fully seen. You begin to believe that love must come at the cost of your authenticity. You shrink in relationships, overgive to feel worthy, and abandon your truth just to avoid disappointing others. This is the invisible prison, the emotional inheritance of a mother complex that Jung warned could dominate a life unconsciously. But she isn't just the wound, she's the key. The shadow mother is not only a force of limitation, she also guards the doorway to your lost power. That's the paradox. The very fear that controls you also points to the strength you've buried. The guilt you feel for wanting to be free, that's the signal. The anxiety that comes when you speak your truth, that's the threshold. And until you consciously face her, until you stop avoiding her presence within, you remain entangled in patterns that aren't truly yours. Carl Jung said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." To face your shadow mother is not to blame or condemn your real mother. It's to reclaim the power that has been projected onto her. It's to draw back the energy you gave away as a child, the energy that was once tied to survival, approval, and emotional safety. And as you begin to see her clearly, not as a monster, but as a symbol, you dissolve the illusion that she holds power over you. This is how you begin to heal, not by running from the pain, but by walking into it with eyes open. Not by cutting ties with your past, but by transforming your relationship with the inner image that controls your present. As you do, your voice strengthens, your boundaries sharpen, and your sense of self begins to rise from the ashes of old patterns. You don't just survive, you begin to live as someone emotionally whole. And in that wholeness, you become the mother to yourself that you never had. If this message speaks to your soul, repeat after me. I recognize the shadow, and I reclaim my power. I am free to live as my true self. Type it in the comments if you're ready to break free from the guilt, release the energetic chains, and step into your healing. 4. The internal mother, the silent dictator. The internal mother, what Carl Jung called the imago, isn't just a memory of your real mother. It's a powerful psychic blueprint etched into your subconscious. This inner figure becomes a silent authority, shaping how you love, how you feel safe, how you set limits, and even how you speak to yourself when no one else is listening. Over time, her voice becomes your inner critic. Not because you chose it, but because you were too young to know you could refuse it. That voice, the one that says, "You're not enough, don't try too hard, stay small," is not your own. It is the residue of a mother's unhealed wounds transferred to you through tone, silence, protection, control, or neglect. Without realizing it, many people walk through life ruled by this inner mother. Her fear becomes your hesitation. Her shame becomes your silence. Her expectations become the invisible ceiling you keep hitting whenever you try to rise. She's not just in your memories. She's in your choices, who you love, how you trust, whether you take the risk or shrink back. This is the mother complex. It's not about blaming your mother. It's about recognizing that your nervous system, your emotional body, and your core beliefs were shaped by someone who had their own unresolved pain. Until you face this inherited structure, it will continue to sabotage your freedom from within. Healing begins the moment you stop identifying with that inner voice. You start to observe it instead of obey it. You notice the guilt that arises when you put yourself first, the fear that creeps in when you stand in your truth, the anxiety that tightens when you disappoint someone else. And then you ask, whose voice is this really? That question is revolutionary. Because once you realize that this voice is not your own, but an internalized authority, you begin to loosen its grip. Jung believed that healing required individuation, the courageous process of separating from inherited psychic patterns to discover who you truly are beneath them. This work isn't clean or easy. It often feels like betrayal. But it's not betrayal, it's liberation. You are not abandoning your mother when you heal. You are breaking the chain for both of you. You are becoming the self she never got to become. You are raising your consciousness above the trauma she unconsciously passed down. And in doing so, you become the healing she didn't have access to. When you step out of the emotional cage built by your past, you reclaim your birthright to live as yourself, not a shadow of someone else's unlived life. The internal mother will try to keep you safe by keeping you small. But your soul came here to grow. And true growth means questioning every voice inside you that tells you to dim your light. Because that voice is not the voice of your truth. It is the echo of a survival pattern. And once you see it, you can choose differently. Not by fighting her, but by loving yourself more deeply than she ever could. If this message helped you recognize the silent voice shaping your life, leave a like and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss another awakening insight. And if you're ready to reclaim your inner freedom, type in the comments, "I choose my voice over the inner critic." 5. Separation, the necessary ego breakthrough. Separation from the mother complex is not an act of rebellion, but a sacred rite of inner evolution. Carl Jung called it symbolic separation, a necessary break from the unconscious bonds of guilt, dependency, and emotional loyalty that keep you tethered to an inner image of the mother. This isn't about rejecting the woman who gave you life. It's about releasing the emotional contracts you unknowingly signed long ago, the ones that still influence your voice, your choices, and the way you move through the world. Psychological maturity requires this second birth. Your body may have been born decades ago, but your soul must be born anew. And that birth often begins with pain. You may feel disoriented, like you're betraying something sacred, but you're not. You're honoring your soul's right to breathe without asking permission. The inner mother formed through years of childhood. Imprinting has likely shaped your inner world more than you realize. Her fears become yours. Her silence becomes your shame. Her expectations mold your identity. A woman once said, "I don't know what I want, I only know what she would approve of." That moment was her awakening. She wasn't living her life. She was inhabiting a version of herself built to maintain the bond. This is how the mother complex survives, through unconscious obedience, emotional entanglement, and inherited dreams. But the moment you pause and ask, "What do I truly want?" you are already breaking the spell. The grief that comes with separation is real. It's not just about losing a bond. It's about mourning the self that never had space to fully form. This sorrow, though heavy, is sacred. It carves room for truth. As the dependency dissolves, you begin to notice your own voice beneath the noise. Your choices become clearer. Your needs stop apologizing. And your life begins to align not with what was expected, but with what is true. Jung wrote, "The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parent." When you remain enmeshed, you carry not just love, but also unspoken sorrow, unfulfilled longing, and the echoes of someone else's narrative. To heal is not to sever love. It is to reclaim authorship. It is to say, "I honor your story, but I will not repeat it." This is the moment the sovereign self emerges, not hardened, not detached, but clear and rooted. The guilt fades. The fear shrinks. What remains is the strength to live as yourself, unapologetically, wholeheartedly, and finally free. If you're ready to take the courageous step toward true inner freedom, subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom for more transformative insights like this. Tap the bell so you never miss a video that supports your soul's rebirth. and comment below. I choose my sovereign self to affirm your journey. 6. Symptoms of an unhealed mother wound. Have you ever felt a persistent inner voice that tells you you're not good enough, no matter how much you achieve? That's not just low self-esteem. It could be the echo of what Carl Jung called the mother complex. This invisible psychic pattern often stems from an unhealed mother wound, and it shapes much of our emotional lives in adulthood until we face it head-on. Let's explore 9 core psychological symptoms that may point to an unresolved mother wound. As you listen, check in with yourself. These patterns aren't signs of weakness. They are messages from your soul, asking to be healed. First, there's the inner critic, a constant mental loop of self-doubt and harsh judgment. This is not your authentic voice. It often originates from internalized maternal disapproval or perfectionist standards. If your mother figure was overly critical, emotionally distant, or emotionally inconsistent, you may have learned to police yourself harshly in an attempt to earn love or avoid rejection. Jung once said, "The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parent." That burden often shows up as the voice of the inner critic. Second, you might experience a fear of autonomy and unconscious resistance to becoming fully independent. This can manifest as clinging to relationships that no longer serve you, difficulty making decisions alone, or sabotaging your own growth. The child within is still seeking approval or fearing punishment from the mother figure. Third, guilt and inherited shame weigh heavily. Sometimes this guilt doesn't even feel like it belongs to you. It may be ancestral or absorbed from a parent who carried deep emotional wounds. You might feel guilty for wanting more, for expressing anger, or even for simply existing as yourself. Fourth, people-pleasing and self-abandonment become survival strategies. You mold yourself to meet the emotional needs of others, often at the cost of your own authenticity. Your sense of worth is built on external validation. But remember, constantly betraying yourself just to be accepted only deepens the wound. Fifth, there's a tendency to repeat toxic relationship patterns. Unconsciously, you may be drawn to partners who reflect the emotional unavailability or manipulation you experienced as a child. These aren't failures, they're invitations to heal. Sixth, the haunting feeling of not enough becomes your emotional baseline. No matter how much you do, achieve, or give, it never feels like it's sufficient. This belief is not based on truth, but on emotional conditioning passed down through unresolved maternal energy. Seventh, your creativity and self-expression may feel blocked. You may struggle to speak your truth, pursue your passions, or share your authentic voice. An unhealed mother wound often shuts down the feminine principle within the part of you that gives life to dreams, ideas, and joy. Eighth, this wounding doesn't just live in your mind. It often shows up as somatic symptoms. Chronic fatigue, anxiety, autoimmune issues, or tightness in the chest can all be signals from the body that the inner child is still holding on to trauma. As Bessel van der Kolk reminds us in The Body Keeps the Score, trauma is not just an event that took place sometime in the past. It is also the imprint left by that experience on the mind, brain, and body. Ninth, many experience a sense of spiritual emptiness, a disconnection from the feminine principle. Intuition, receptivity, nurturance leaves you feeling ungrounded, even if life looks successful on the surface. There may be a longing to reconnect with something sacred, soft, and nourishing inside you, but you don't know how. These symptoms are not random. They are sacred clues pointing you toward healing. You are not broken. You are becoming. When you begin to face the wound, you reclaim your voice, your body, your emotions, and your spirit. Healing the mother's wound doesn't mean blaming your mother. It means freeing yourself from the unconscious patterns that keep you stuck in pain. As we explore these 9 symptoms of the unhealed mother wound, remember, awareness is the first step to liberation. If this message resonates with your inner truth, affirm your healing journey by commenting, "I am ready to face the wound and reclaim my power." Your presence here shows your courage and willingness to grow. Let's walk the path of deep healing together. 7. Embracing the shadow mother as inner ritual. Facing the shadow mother is never a surface-level task. It is an initiation, a descent into the deep interior of the psyche, where ancestral pain, inherited patterns, and emotional imprints reside. She is not simply the woman who raised you, but a living force within a blueprint shaping your beliefs about love, safety, and self-worth. Until this inner figure is confronted, she remains a silent dictator, influencing your choices, sabotaging your relationships, and distorting your sense of identity. You may find yourself endlessly seeking validation, fearing rejection, or betraying your own truth just to avoid the silent disapproval that still echoes inside you. Carl Jung offered us a profound key: active imagination. This method allows us to speak with these inner figures directly, not through logic, but through symbol, vision, and emotional honesty. You might see her as distant, cold, overbearing, or even devouring. But the goal is not to destroy her. It is to make her conscious, to reclaim the energy you've buried in fear, grief, or obedience. Every inner dialogue, every visualization, every symbolic gesture is a step toward integration, where the mother no longer controls your psyche, but becomes a part of your inner wholeness. Ritual is the language of the soul. In this work, ritual doesn't mean ceremony for others to see. It means personal, symbolic acts that signal to the unconscious mind that transformation is underway. Writing letters to the mother you never send, meditating with her image and giving voice to all the words you never spoke, creating spaces to cry, rage, forgive. These are not small acts. They are sacred ruptures in the old identity, breaking the illusion of the perfect mother or the monstrous mother, both of which are myths. No mother is perfect. And even the shadow mother holds her own unhealed story. Seeing this does not excuse harm, but it frees you from carrying what was never yours to hold. Grief is necessary. You must grieve who she couldn't be. Grieve the parts of you that hardened around her absence or control. Grieve the innocence that was shaped by her silence. This grief is holy. It prepares the ground for rebirth. As Jung said, there is no coming to consciousness without pain. The death you experience is not physical, but symbolic. The death of the false self, the identity built to survive, to please, to adapt. And from that death, something sacred arises, the sovereign self. When the shadow dissolves, what returns is what was always yours. Your intuition, your softness, your inner knowing, your self-trust. You stop needing her voice to guide you because your own voice becomes enough. You no longer chase approval. You become your own nurturer. What once felt like a curse becomes the doorway to wisdom. You do not escape the mother. You alchemize her. You transform inherited pain into embodied power. This is the work, and it changes everything. Let's create a sacred space of support and healing in the comments. If this message resonates with your journey, comment, "I honor my shadow as part of my healing." When you see someone else comment this, take a moment to reply with encouragement or leave a heart. This simple act helps us nurture a compassionate, awakened community where no one walks this path alone. 8. Forgiveness is not the goal. Freedom is. Forgiveness is often presented as the ultimate key to healing, but that belief can become a trap. Real healing is not about rushing to forgive. It's about integration. It's about owning your truth, not glossing over it with spiritual cliches. When you force yourself to forgive before you've processed the pain, you're not healing. You're spiritually bypassing the very wound that needs your attention. Suppressing your anger or grief in the name of being good only buries the truth deeper into your nervous system. Freedom doesn't come from denying what hurt you. It comes from finally facing it without flinching. Carl Jung reminds us that nothing changes until it is accepted. Acceptance is not passive. It's an act of courage. It means reclaiming the parts of yourself that were silenced, dismissed, or denied in the name of peace. True healing requires you to confront what happened and how it shaped you, not to blame, but to bring your inner landscape into alignment. You don't owe reconciliation to anyone who refuses to see or own their role in your pain. You owe it to yourself to stop waiting for an apology that may never come, and start listening to the voice within you that has been screaming to be heard. Take the example of a woman named Elise. She spent decades trying to forgive her emotionally manipulative mother. She went to therapy, practiced gratitude, wrote letters of compassion, but none of it worked. Because she had skipped the one essential step, speaking her truth. Only when she admitted to herself how deep the wound really was, how unseen and unloved she had felt, did she finally begin to heal. She stopped performing forgiveness and began honoring her pain. That shift changed everything. Her voice returned. Her boundaries solidified. Her self-trust bloomed. Reconciliation is not the requirement. Ownership is. The moment you stop chasing external validation and start affirming your lived experience, you cut the energetic cords that keep you bound. Freedom is not granted by the other person. It's a self-claimed inheritance. You break the cycle the moment you stop editing your story to protect the one who hurt you. You rise when you decide your peace matters more than preserving a false image of family harmony. You grow when you declare that your truth is holy, even if no one else believes it. This journey is not about bitterness. It's about liberation. You are not here to shrink yourself in order to make others feel comfortable. You are not here to silence your pain so someone else doesn't feel guilty. You are here to rise into the fullness of who you were always meant to be. When you reclaim your story, your power returns. When you speak what was once unspeakable, your soul begins to breathe again. When you draw a line and say, "This is where it ends," you don't just protect yourself, you protect the generations to come. Healing is not polite. It's raw. It's honest. It's fierce. And it is yours. Now close your eyes, take a deep breath, and let go of the need to make peace with anyone but yourself. Freedom begins when you stop performing forgiveness and start honoring your truth. Repeat after me. I release the need to be understood. I choose freedom over forced forgiveness. 9. Rebirth. Life beyond the mother complex. Healing the mother's wound is not the conclusion of your journey. It is the beginning of your return to authenticity. As you begin to release the inherited roles you've played, roles built around seeking approval, suppressing your truth, or playing small to feel safe, you begin to meet a version of yourself untouched by performance. Carl Jung once said, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do." In this new inner landscape, you no longer wait for permission to be whole, you simply are. You stop seeking to be chosen, because you choose yourself. And from that act of inner claiming, something remarkable happens. You begin to live from sovereignty rather than survival. This shift is not just emotional, it's a rebirth. You no longer operate from the child within, hoping for love to be returned in the form you never received. Instead, you mature into the adult who gives love without self-abandonment and receives love without fear. The patterns that once governed your relationships, neediness, people-pleasing, emotional withdrawal, lose their grip. You stop repeating history. You stop recreating your pain in every partner, every friendship, every dynamic. You no longer need someone to mirror your wounds. You seek those who can meet your wholeness, not complete your brokenness. And in this space of clarity, relationships transform. They become sacred containers for mutual growth, not emotional battlegrounds for repressed wounds. You speak without shrinking. You walk away without guilt. You set boundaries not to punish, but to protect your peace. This isn't detachment, it's alignment. Your connections no longer come from fear of being alone. They come from the joy of being fully seen. That joy could never grow in the soil of your past, because your past was rooted in scripts you didn't write. Now, you're the author. Yet this healing is never just yours. It echoes through your lineage. You become what some call a conscious ancestor, the one who ends the pattern, who breaks the cycle, who chooses differently. Jung reminded us, the greatest tragedy of the family is the unlived life of the parent. When you choose to live fully beyond your mother's fears, beyond her wounds, beyond her limitations, you liberate more than just yourself. You liberate the generations before you who were never allowed to. And you create a future where the children born from your freedom will never carry what you had to heal. You become the turning point. So this journey, as difficult and sacred as it is, isn't about blaming the mother. It's about meeting the shadow she left within you, seeing it clearly, and transmuting it into light. You do not reject her. You reintegrate her, piece by piece, until what remains is the wisdom, not the wound. Until what emerges is a self no longer haunted by the past, but illuminated by it. A self that finally remembers, I was never broken. I was only buried. And now I rise. To honor your rebirth beyond the mother complex, declare your transformation. Comment below, I choose myself, as a powerful affirmation that you are no longer waiting to be validated. You are stepping into your wholeness. Your words might be the light someone else needs to begin their own healing journey. 10. Final reflection. Jungian individuation is not just a concept, it's a reckoning. It is the painful, courageous transition from inherited suffering to inner sovereignty. To individuate is to break the cycle, to step away from unconscious patterns passed down through bloodlines, and to finally become your own. It begins with rupture, the kind that forces you to see that the life you've been living was constructed on someone else's blueprint. It continues with grief, the grief of losing illusions, roles, and versions of yourself that were created for survival, not authenticity. And then, if you stay the course, it brings rebirth, a sense of emerging from the ruins, not just alive, but awake. Carl Jung once wrote, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." This is the call to turn inward, not to escape the world, but to face the internal architecture that built your entire emotional reality. The shadow you carry, the mother wound you inherited, the voices that shaped your self-worth, they live inside you. But they are not you. When you dare to look within, not just with curiosity, but with fierce compassion, you begin the sacred work of remembering your true self, the one who was never broken, only buried. The shift happens subtly at first. You stop reacting and start responding. You question old loyalties. You catch the echo of your mother's voice in your own self-talk, and you choose, consciously, to replace it with something kinder, something truer. You realize that you're no longer seeking to be chosen. You choose yourself. And that simple act of choosing yourself is a radical revolution. You are no longer a character written by generational pain. You are now the author. The pen is in your hand, the page is blank, and what you write next will no longer be a reenactment. It will be truth. It will be freedom. You begin to see that healing is not linear, nor is it ever really done. Sometimes the old ache comes back, not to torment you, but to test you, to ask, will you abandon yourself again, or will you stay? And each time you stay, you deepen your roots. You remember that you are not here to fix the past. You are here to transform it, to feel what others suppressed, to speak what others silenced, to live what others only dreamed of. And in doing so, you become a conscious ancestor, a soul who refused to pass the pain forward, a human who met the wound and became the medicine. This is the gift of individuation, not just to awaken for yourself, but to awaken the future through your example. Thank you for joining us on this deeply personal and transformative journey. Healing is never easy, especially when it leads us back to the roots of our pain. But remember, true liberation begins when we bravely confront the emotional imprint left by the mother figure within. If this message resonated with you, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who may need it, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. Be sure to turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful insight that could change your life. Until next time, stay aware, stay grounded, and keep walking the path of healing and truth. Carl Jung on intuition. How to tap into your inner wisdom. Your visions will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes. Carl Jung. In a world that constantly demands logic and reason, we often forget the quiet power of intuition, the deep inner voice that knows the way, even when the mind is confused. In today's video on Spiritual Wisdom, we explore how Carl Jung's teachings can help you awaken this inner compass and live more authentically. As you listen, reflect on your own intuitive experiences. Have you ever just known something without evidence? Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your stories. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and join our community of conscious souls growing together. 1. What is intuition? According to Carl Jung, intuition, as Carl Jung described, is seeing with the soul, a kind of deep inner knowing that transcends logic and bypasses the limitations of rational thought. It is not a vague hunch or a lucky guess. Rather, it is a fundamental psychological function, just as vital as thinking or feeling. Jung believed intuition was how the unconscious communicates with the conscious mind. It reveals patterns, truths, and potential outcomes that reason cannot yet see. While the thinking mind asks, what is the evidence? The intuitive mind simply knows. It senses truth, not from analysis, but from an alignment with something deeper within the hidden architecture of the psyche. This kind of knowing isn't about passive waiting. It's an active form of perception that tunes into what lies beneath the surface of reality. Intuitive individuals often detect changes in energy, symbolism, or emotional undercurrents long before they become obvious. They might walk into a room and instantly sense something is off, or meet someone and just know there's more than meets the eye. Jung emphasized that this isn't magic, it's spiritual wisdom in action. It's the soul recognizing patterns the ego has not yet caught up with. In this way, intuition functions like a bridge between the unconscious and the conscious, the invisible and the visible, the spirit and the world. When logic reaches its limits, when we face a decision that cannot be solved with facts alone, intuition steps in to guide us. It offers clarity in uncertainty, direction in moments of confusion. Think of those times when everything made sense on paper, yet something inside told you to walk away. Or those moments when the choice that seemed illogical ended up being exactly what your life needed. That's the essence of intuition. It doesn't shout, it whispers. And when we learn to quiet the noise of the outside world, we begin to hear its voice more clearly. Jung also saw intuition as a pathway to transformation. It allows us to engage with life not only through intellect, but through deeper perception. It helps us tune into the inner messages of the soul and align with our authentic path. This kind of perception cannot be rushed or forced. It emerges in stillness, in solitude, in moments of surrender. The more we trust it, the more it reveals. And in doing so, we begin to see that spiritual wisdom isn't just about knowledge, it's about presence. It's about being in tune with something greater than logic, the movement of the soul. Cultivating intuition, then, is not just a psychological exercise, it's a spiritual practice. It requires us to become more receptive, more aware, more honest with ourselves. We must be willing to feel, to listen, to trust. When we honor this inner guidance, we stop chasing answers in the external world and begin to recognize that the most profound truths often arise from within. And once we open ourselves to this inner current of knowing, we no longer live just from the mind. We begin to live from the soul. Do you feel the truth of this deep within? If you do, share it in the comments. I trust my intuition. I see with the soul. 2. The 4 types of intuition identified by Carl Jung. Carl Jung identified 4 types of intuition, each revealing a different way that our inner wisdom guides us through life. The first type is gut feeling, which is rooted in the body and environment. It is not just seeing or hearing, but also sensing energy. You may walk into a room and immediately feel unsettled before anyone speaks. People with this type of intuition often work in the arts or performing arts, where reading moods, atmospheres, or hidden signals is essential. Their bodies become finely tuned instruments of perception, and this deep connection with the physical world is often the first step in a spiritual awakening, as they begin to realize that energy always speaks first, even louder than words. The second type is thinking intuition, which combines logic and insight into a powerful inner compass. It allows people to make mental leaps, to see patterns, ideas, or solutions that others miss. This is the domain of the inventor, the scientist, the strategist. Einstein once famously said, "The intuitive mind is a sacred gift, and the rational mind is a faithful servant." Intuitive thinking helps people connect the dots not just through data, but through deeper inner vision. They solve problems not just through analysis, but through imagination. It's as if their thinking is guided by an invisible hand, pointing them toward breakthroughs that logic alone could never create. This form of intuitive understanding reminds us that true wisdom is both mysterious, sudden, and inspiring. Third is emotional intuition, a deep emotional radar that can tune into the emotions of others, often without any words. This is the kind of insight that therapists, healers, and deep empaths rely on. They can sense the sadness behind a smile or sense someone's pain just by being in the same room. They often carry emotions that are not their own, and if they are not aware of it, it can become overwhelming. But when this gift is embraced, it becomes a sacred bridge to the inner world of another person. Emotional intuition invites connection at the soul level and plays a profound role in spiritual awakening, as it requires emotional honesty and teaches that love, compassion, and emotional truth are the paths to divine wisdom. Fourth, intuitive judgment looks beyond the present moment and recognizes future trends, patterns, and possibilities. This is the intuition of visionaries, the kind of intuition that guided Steve Jobs to shape technology before the world knew what it wanted. Intuitive judgment captures the direction of energy before events unfold. It not only reacts to life, but also anticipates it. Leaders, creators, and spiritual pioneers often possess this intuitive gift. They don't just go with the flow, they become the flow. They sense what's coming and prepare the way ahead. This type of intuition has a deep connection to destiny and often becomes more evident after a spiritual awakening, when the soul begins to recognize its mission and understand that visioning is a sacred responsibility. These four types of intuition, feeling, thinking, feeling, and judging together, form a fuller picture of intuitive intelligence. Each provides a different window into truth, and when integrated, they help us trust ourselves, align with our path, and open to higher consciousness. According to Jung, intuition is not irrational, it's super-rational. It's not guesswork, it's guidance. And by developing these forms of inner knowing, we begin to see the world and ourselves with conscious eyes. Which type of intuition do you resonate with most? If you already know, share it in the comments to inspire others. If you're still exploring, comment, "I'm discovering my intuition," and let's grow together on this inner journey. 3. How to develop your intuition. Carl Jung believed that intuition is not just a hunch, it's a powerful inner faculty that connects us to the hidden layers of our psyche. It goes beyond logic and rationality. It's the soul speaking, often softly, yet with stunning accuracy. One of the most effective ways to access this intuitive realm is through a method he called active imagination. Unlike daydreaming, active imagination is an intentional journey inward. You sit quietly and allow images, thoughts, or feelings to arise without controlling them. Maybe you picture a forest path, or an old wise figure appears. You follow the story and observe the emotions. Through this process, unconscious material comes to the surface, offering insight you wouldn't reach through reason alone. It's not about analyzing, it's about experiencing. This technique can feel like stepping into the sacred space within yourself, where clarity is waiting. Another powerful tool Jung encouraged was dream interpretation. To him, dreams weren't meaningless, they were messengers. He believed every dream, no matter how strange, held symbols reflecting your inner state. By keeping a dream journal and recording your dreams each morning, you begin to see patterns. A recurring staircase may signal emotional ascension or a call for growth. a flooded room could reflect emotional overwhelm. Over time, these images become a language. The unconscious mind doesn't speak in words, it speaks in metaphors. By learning this symbolic language, you become fluent in your own inner truth. Jung often reminded his students that the dream is the hidden door to the deepest parts of the soul. Journaling, too, is a quiet revolution. When you let your pen flow without trying to sound smart or polished, you invite the subconscious to step forward. Carl Jung believed this kind of writing could reveal what's repressed, denied, or ignored. You may begin with confusion, but end with clarity. Writing without censoring allows patterns to reveal themselves. Certain words will repeat. Certain emotions will rise. And often, hidden desires or unspoken fears come through. The page becomes a mirror, not of your surface life, but of your soul's terrain. Writing daily, even just 10 minutes, becomes a spiritual dialogue between your conscious and unconscious mind. Meditation, in Jungian terms, is not just a spiritual practice, it's a tool for psychological integration. It creates space. In silence, you begin to separate your own voice from the noise of the world. The intuition buried beneath mental chatter starts to rise. You begin to feel the right answer without needing to explain it. Jung said that solitude is necessary to listen to the whispers of the soul. Meditation, even for 10 minutes a day, invites you to turn inward and recognize the signals already within. With consistent practice, your intuitive sense sharpens, and you begin to live more aligned with your true self. Ava, a 30-something creative professional in New York, once felt trapped in a career that paid well, but felt spiritually empty. She began journaling every morning before checking her phone. She noticed recurring dreams of standing in front of people, sharing stories, not crunching numbers behind a screen. This nudge led her to explore coaching and eventually launch her own wellness podcast. She didn't get that clarity from a spreadsheet or an expert's advice. It came from within quietly, consistently, and powerfully. This is the kind of intuitive intelligence Carl Jung devoted his life to uncovering. When you practice these methods of active imagination, dream interpretation, journaling, and meditation, you begin to build a bridge between your conscious life and the inner world that holds your deepest truths. You stop searching for answers outside and start listening to the wisdom that has always been there. You don't just know more, you become more. Stay connected with our community of spiritual growth by subscribing to our channel. Here, we explore the power of inner wisdom and help each other strengthen our intuitive gifts. Remember, your intuition is a sacred guide. Trust it, nurture it, and let it lead you to a life of deeper clarity and purpose. 4. Life-changing benefits of developing intuition. Developing intuition unlocks an endless flow of creativity, allowing ideas to surface not from calculated effort, but from a deeper place within. True inspiration rarely comes from the mind alone. It arises when we quiet the noise and trust what we feel. Great visionaries like Leonardo da Vinci and Salvador Dalí didn't create from logic. They channeled something beyond thought, tapping into the symbolic and the surreal. Their artistic breakthroughs were not born of step-by-step processes, but from surrendering to an inner stream of insight. When you awaken your intuition, you begin to create not just with your hands or your mind, but with your soul. This same intuitive power also enhances problem solving. Instead of getting trapped in endless analysis, you begin to receive answers as quiet nudges, and sudden clarity. It's like skipping over the maze and landing directly at the heart of the solution. These moments of insight often come when you're not even trying, during a walk, in the shower, or while dreaming. That's because intuition operates in silence, beneath the noise of mental chatter. It's the whisper of spiritual wisdom that speaks when reason pauses. Trusting it leads to quicker, more elegant resolutions that logic might take hours to reach. Intuition also sharpens your decision-making. It helps you tune in to the emotional and spiritual undercurrents that logic often ignores. While facts and data are useful, they can't tell you whether something feels aligned. Intuition does. It shows you what resonates at a soul level, what expands your energy versus what drains it. It guides you toward choices that reflect who you truly are, not who you're told to be. This kind of decision-making creates not only external success, but inner peace, because you're no longer making moves from fear or pressure. You're responding to truth. Perhaps the most profound gift of intuition is the deepened self-awareness it brings. The more you listen within, the more you uncover your hidden desires, buried fears, and authentic motivations. You stop living on autopilot and begin aligning with your true nature. This clarity reshapes your entire life. You no longer chase approval or walk paths that aren't yours. You start creating a life that reflects your soul's blueprint. Intuition becomes your inner compass, always pointing you back home to yourself. And with each step, guided by that inner voice, you embody a higher truth, one rooted in alignment, not attachment, in freedom, not fear. This is not just personal growth. It is a spiritual awakening. If you feel this message speaks to your soul, say it with faith. I am opening my heart to divine guidance. I trust my intuition to lead me to my highest path. 5. Signs you might be naturally intuitive. You often find yourself pausing to reflect deeply on your thoughts and emotions. You don't just react. You observe, question, and dive beneath the surface. While others might rush past their feelings, you're drawn inward, tracing the roots of your inner world. This emotional self-awareness is not simply a habit. It's the foundation of intuitive intelligence. It's your soul's way of showing you the deeper patterns at play, and it's often one of the first signs of a spiritual awakening beginning to unfold within you. Then there are the moments when you feel something shift before anyone says a word. The energy in the room tightens, or a person walks in with a smile that doesn't match their vibration. You pick up on it instantly. You feel the unspoken tension, the hidden grief, the quiet truth beneath the noise. This kind of emotional radar doesn't come from training. It comes from being deeply in tune with the frequencies of others. Your intuition senses what the eyes cannot see and the ears cannot hear. It's a sacred sensitivity, and it's not a flaw. It's a gift. Sometimes, your knowledge comes without any evidence. You don't need proof or reasoning. You just know. You sense that someone's in pain. You feel that a decision is wrong, even when everyone says it's right. There are no words, just a quiet inner voice that whispers truth before it's revealed. Jung called this the power of the unconscious, the unseen realm where the soul gathers knowledge that logic hasn't caught up with yet. When you follow this inner knowing, you're not guessing. You're aligning with the wisdom of your higher self. And when your intuition speaks clearly, you listen even if it doesn't make sense at the moment. You avoid a situation that feels wrong. You distance yourself from a person who drains your energy. Later, you find out you were right all along. This is more than instinct. It's your spiritual compass. It points you away from harm and gently guides you toward alignment. You might not always be able to explain it, but the accuracy of your intuition affirms that your soul is watching over you, leading you through the unseen. Your heart naturally gravitates toward people and experiences that hold depth and meaning. You don't chase shallow thrills. You're drawn to soulful conversations, transformative ideas, and creative spaces that allow your inner light to breathe. Whether it's music, healing, spirituality, or storytelling, you follow what speaks to your essence. You may not always know why, but you feel pulled toward what helps you remember who you truly are. This inner pull is your spirit guiding you home step by step, moment by moment. And every time you follow it, your spiritual awakening deepens, bringing you closer to the truth that's been waiting inside you all along. If you've ever sensed things others couldn't explain, this video was made for you. Subscribe for more insights on how to embrace your natural intuition and unlock the hidden wisdom within. 6. Final message. Intuition is not just a passing feeling or a vague hunch. It's a form of deep inner guidance that reveals truths we often can't explain through logic alone. Carl Jung believed intuition was one of the core functions of the psyche, capable of accessing insights that go far beyond what the eye can see or the mind can analyze. He taught that intuition connects us to symbolic meaning and inner truths that logic overlooks. It's not the opposite of reason. It simply operates in a different realm, one that is quiet, inward, and deeply connected to the soul. In Jung's view, the intuitive mind acts like a bridge to the unconscious, offering glimpses of the larger picture that is still forming just beneath the surface. Rather than something mystical or inaccessible, Jung saw intuition as a natural ability we all possess, and one that can be developed through intention and practice. Like a muscle, it strengthens with use. Every time you trust that inner nudge, that quiet signal within you, you train yourself to hear it more clearly the next time. It may begin with simple decisions, choosing a path to walk, a book to read, a conversation to initiate, but each act of listening sharpens your internal compass. And with time, that compass begins to align your entire life with your soul's deeper truth. You become more attuned to what feels authentic rather than what merely looks good on paper. Take, for example, a woman who worked in a corporate office for many years. Her job was stable, her paycheck consistent, and everyone around her assumed she was happy. But deep inside, she felt a persistent ache, a subtle knowing that something wasn't right. One morning, after months of ignoring this feeling, she sat alone in a cafe and allowed herself to really listen. That day, she made the decision to leave her job and pursue holistic healing, a calling she had long buried beneath expectations. Years later, she runs a sanctuary for others seeking spiritual awakening and emotional healing. It wasn't a logical path, but it was an intuitive one, and it changed her life entirely. This kind of inner shift is exactly what Carl Jung meant when he described how intuition can unlock a more authentic and meaningful existence. Intuition leads us into alignment. As you grow into it, your choices become less about pleasing others or chasing certainty, and more about honoring what feels right in your bones. The more you follow that feeling, the more your external reality begins to mirror your inner truth. Jung often emphasized that this kind of alignment is not just personal, it's spiritual. It is through intuition that we become aware of our soul's direction. And from that awareness, a life of purpose begins to unfold. The path may not be clear at first, and it rarely comes with a map. But what you gain in return is something far more valuable. A life rooted in inner truth, clarity, and quiet certainty. Intuition is spiritual wisdom in motion. It is the thread that ties you to your unconscious mind, to symbolic meaning, to the soul's guidance system. Carl Jung understood this deeply, and his legacy reminds us that the greatest answers often come not from thinking harder, but from listening more closely. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the power of intuition through the lens of Carl Jung's profound insights. Remember, your inner wisdom is always speaking. You just need to slow down and listen. Trust those quiet nudges, those gut feelings, those subtle truths that rise from within. They are the language of your soul, guiding you toward alignment, peace, and purpose. If this message resonated with you, please give this video a like, share it with someone who might need to hear it, and don't forget to subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. Hit the notification bell so you never miss our upcoming videos filled with deep spiritual insight and transformation. Until next time, stay connected to your inner light.